Hi, I'm Preston Williams, and welcome to another edition of Jazz Talk. Today on our show, we are joined by one of the most gifted musicians in this music today. This gentleman has been on the scene for over 40 years and has worked with many greats from Dexter Gordon to Betty Carter, Johnny Griffith, so many. I could sit here and just go through the list. Farrell Sanders, Dr. Billy Taylor, Curtis Lundy. He's worked with everyone. He is a drummer, composer, and educator. Please welcome to Jazz Talk, Mr. Winard Harper. Welcome, sir.
Hey man, thank you very much.
And it's
And
so
thank you
good to
for
have
having me.
it's so good to have you on. Well, let's jump into this, man. I want to talk a little bit about your humble beginnings and your background. And you and I were just chatting before. Now, you're originally from Baltimore, right?
Born and raised.
Born and raised. And I guess by the time what you were 5 or somewhere in there, you guys moved to Washington, D.C., you and your family.
No, actually, I started playing in clubs in Baltimore when I was 5. We
Yeah.
left when I was 10 and moved to Atlanta.
Man, you know what's crazy? I was reading somewhere that you were playing with your older brother, 5 years old, his
Right,
rock and
correct.
roll band. In this rock and roll band. I said, how were you pulling it off? I mean, were you able to really keep time or play? Tell me about that, Bernard.
No, well, see, by the time I was 5, he had like one of those R&B dance bands, basement band, and I
Yeah.
would get a feature. I get to play 2 tunes. So
Oh, that's
and
cool.
so that would happen up until I was like 9. Then I was 9, I got the regular chair.
Yeah. Well, tell me, why did you choose drums? Did you just have a knack for hitting on cans or boxes when you were little and your parents saw the talent? They said, well, man, we should get this young man some drums.
Yeah, I had when my older brother would sit and try to pick parts off of records, I
Right.
would pull out some cans and start beating on him, and him and my parents saw the interest, and
Yeah.
so they kind of just steered me in a direction.
Yeah, yeah. So when you guys, I guess, moved to DC, I heard that you and your brother would just be hanging out, I guess, in the streets of Georgetown. Just I guess maybe trying to play with people or looking for gigs or something like that.
Well, let's see. Actually, like I said, when I was 10, we moved to Atlanta. So I went to Atlanta, graduated high school. And when I
Okay.
graduated high school, because I'm a little older than Philip, so coming out of high school, I went to Cincinnati Conservatory for a quick minute. That didn't really work. Went back home for a minute, and then I met Billy Hart. And Billy
Yeah.
Hart and I became very, good friends and talked. And I knew he was from DC. I was from Baltimore. So he
Right.
was saying, well, if you're serious about this, you got to try to, get closer to, to a more, you know, active environment. So I
Yeah.
said, okay, well, you know what? I'm gonna try to go to DC. I said, so I'll try to enroll in school. I went to Howard. I enrolled in Howard.
Yeah.
Got to DC and just started playing around. And I would bring Philip up because he was still in high school. So when he had vacations and weekends, I would, get him to come up and hang out and we play. And then that's actually where the Harper brothers started. It was right
Yeah.
there in DC. And it started as the DC Jazz Quintet with Philip, great alto player, lives out in the West Coast now, Roger Woods. And we would just play, man. We play out on the street, find little gigs, and just hit.
Man, I'm telling you, believe it or not, don't laugh, but I still have, I think, like 3 or 4 of the Harper Brothers recordings. They're on cassette. You know, in my down in my basement.
Yeah,
But
because
man, yeah,
we were one of the last groups to get to do all the formats. So we
yeah,
had albums, we had cassette tapes, and then
right,
CD. So
yeah,
like those cats that came on like that, I said the last, the almost middle to last part of the 80s.
yeah.
CDs were just coming in, so you did all formats. So you did album, you did cassette tapes, and CD.
Man, I loved it. You guys were fantastic. I just remember listening to those cassettes over and over, and I said, man, these guys are young, but you guys just sound like you know, serious studio musicians, veterans who have been around for such a long time. But that was some good stuff. I was just thinking, we talked about Billy Hart being from DC. I think Jimmy Cobb is also from DC.
Yep, Jimmy Cobb. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Now, during that time period, I guess by the time the early '80s rolled around, you got a scholarship at what University of Hartford, right?
Yeah, after being in DC for a minute, and we were good friends too with Antoine Roney, Wallace
Yeah,
Roney's brother.
Austin's brother.
And
Yeah.
we did some summer gigs together.
Hmm.
And he was at the University of Hartford with Jackie McLean. So he told Jackie about us. Jackie called us up and asked us did we want to come up and go to school. I mean, I have to say, for us, it was more excitement hearing Jackie McLean, talk to us. I mean, Jackie could have asked us to go just about anywhere. We said, yeah, so we're like, yeah, hey man, yeah, we'll do it. So we were basically going to spend time with Jackie. So
Yeah,
and we did that for a quick minute. And I was only there for like a couple of months, and then I got a call from Dexter, and that was that.
I was about to ask you about that, man. Playing with Dexter Gordon. You were 19 or 20 years old, man? What was that like? Wow, playing with
Oh
Dexter
man,
Gordon.
it was incredible because I met him just before I left to go to Hartford in DC over at Blues Alley. And I would always, go around and hear all the cats and meet them. And actually Eddie Gladden was playing drums with him at the time. So Eddie Gladden and I became good friends. And a lot of those cats that would come to town, I'd make myself available, give them a ride if they need a ride, ask questions, try to, get those little off the side lessons, just learning about the music, figuring out what I needed to know.
Right.
And sometimes, I mean, when I was in DC at that time, sometimes I had like 3 or 4 gigs in a day. So I actually, one of those times I asked Eddie Gladden, I said, well, look, man, I got this gig. You're not doing nothing during the day. You want to make it? He's like, yeah, man, I'm making it. Give me gas money to get back home. So we were doing things like that. And then at night, I would give him and Dexter and all them a ride back to the hotel. So we became friends. And then one night, Eddie let me sit in. And I got a chance to sit in with Dexter Gordon. And after that, I got a call, man.
Man, that's beautiful, playing with a giant like that. And I remember too, I think a couple times I went, this is maybe late 80s or something. I think I caught him at Blues Alley, something like that, because I know he passed in 90. Yeah, working with him, man, one of the greats. And you also, I think not long after that, you worked with Johnny Griffin too, didn't you?
Right, because Dexter got sick and they tried to keep the tour intact and they used Johnny Griffin.
Oh, Johnny's great, man.
Yeah, man, that was
Again, yeah, I can imagine. Now I guess someone else was checking you out because Betty Carter likes drummers and pianists, so you hooked up with Betty, man. What was that like working with her, man? Because she's an institution in and of herself, and I've heard so many stories. I've talked to Cyrus Chestnut, so many musicians. Like, man, he said, man, the first time I played with Betty, man, it was like frightening. He says I wasn't doing this and doing that. He said she would stop the band and lay you out. You know, Betty didn't.
sometimes that would happen. Uh, it was a great experience for me because there again, Betty and I became great friends. Where like a lot of guys would, when they were working with her, they want to get away from her, on their off days or time they had down. I mean, I would call up and we talk, because she said, man, you got 1,001 questions. I would just be picking her brain, because I knew she was kind of independent and promoting herself, and I had a feeling that I was going to need to know that information, so I'd
Right.
ask her questions. So sometimes when we weren't working, we'd hang out, go to a movie, or go check out some music together.
Yeah.
And she knew I had the Harper brothers, and she even gave me opportunities like usually the trio played a tune or two before she would come on. So
Hmm.
when we would be in New York, if we were playing somewhere in New York, Betty would let me bring the guys and we play, and at that time was Philip and Don Braden. So we play a couple of tunes and then Betty would come on. So it was a great experience for me. I loved her. I learned a lot from her. Um, and it prepared you. It could be hard. Don't get me wrong, but anything that's worthwhile is going to be hard. It could be hard. She was a taskmaster, but she'd make you think. And I like that. And I think I'd like to think that what she liked about me was that I didn't dismiss anything. If she told it to me, if I had to sit on it and think for a while, I'd do that or put it in the file cabinet. But Billy Hardin would tell you sometimes she runs some stuff by me, man. I go get my phone, when I get back to the hotel room and call Cat, say, man, she said such and so thing. What do you think she means? How do I approach this? What do I need to do?
Right.
So it was just a learning experience.
Yeah, you were with her for 4 years, man. That was a long time. And yeah, she was definitely one of the greats, man. Loved Betty Carter, and she gave so much. I mean, you could tell she was one to, she worked with a lot of, young musicians. And I was watching some videos of her recently, and yeah, she did her thing, man. One of the greats for sure. Tell me about, you also work with, I guess this is a little later. You also work with Nancy Wilson, man. What was it like working with Nancy?
Oh man, I love Nancy. I would go see her play, because for one while when we got to New York, we took over the jam session at the Blue Note. So when Ted Curson left, he left it with my brother Philip. And all of us, it was a whole crew of us, we would kind of rotate the session. When we were in town, we would do the session. If I couldn't be there, I'd call Bill Stewart or Troy Davis. But it was just a number of us that, kind of got in, and we were just Justin Robinson, Philip, my older brother Danny. We were just Lafayette Harris. We would just float Esther Blue. We would float that session between all of us, just to keep it going. And it was just fun to do because you played a session at the end of the night, but you had a chance to come in and catch the last set of whoever the main act was. So whether it be, Freddie Hubbard, Oscar Peterson, Harry Sweetsaddle, whatever, we had a chance to hang out with them guys and then come up and play the session. So it was a great fun, and really it really helped. And Benny Green, he was a big part of that. And that's the thing about Jimmy Heath once told me, one of the biggest parts of this music is the relationships. And now that I've gotten older, I understand that, because some of those guys that you had a chance to play with coming up when you were 18, 19 years old, you hold those things dear. Because then too, not all of us have made it. Some of us, are no longer living. Some of us get sick, or unfortunately, Allah calls some of us back, and so you hold those relationships dear. Say, wow, man, I played with this guy 10 years ago. We've been playing together for 20 years. Off and on. It's just so special. Especially with this music that you can conversate, get along, and convey those kind of emotions and feelings to people.
Winard, I'm sitting here thinking about the people you've worked with, and a lot of musicians would kill to work with Dexter Gordon, Betty Carter, Johnny Griffin. I mean, they're no longer with us. And you talk about relationships and just carrying that with you. I'm sure you learned so much, from them. I was also going to talk about someone who was very influential. You being a drummer, you talk a lot about Billy Higgins. Billy had a tremendous effect on you. Talk to me about Billy, man, and what you learned from him.
Oh man, that was. I guess if I love a lot of those guys. A lot of those guys are my big brothers, and I adore them. But Higgins was like, we were like close. And a funny story, the way it happened, we have the time. When I got to DC, and this is funny too, how things happen, unconsciously and subconsciously sometimes. Growing up, I have two brothers that play trumpet.
Right.
So of course there was a lot of Art Blakey in the house. They would listen to Freddie Hubbard, Lee, and all that. And there was a lot of Lee Morgan records, because anybody knows Philip, know my brothers love Lee. So of course I was hearing a lot of Billy Higgins,
Right.
and didn't really realize it, Sidewinder and all that stuff. And I guess some of that stuff seeped in. So when I got to DC, the club owners over at the One Step Down said, you remind us of Billy Higgins. And I had never met him. I said, yeah, really? They said, yeah, you remind us a lot of Higgins, even your spirit. So they said, you know what? We got Billy coming here in a couple of months. I said, oh man, I'll have to be sure to catch that. And they said, well, we're gonna hook y'all up. Higgins came to town, didn't have some drums. So I got the call to bring Higgins my drums. And I let him use my drums, man. We hit it right off. I mean, and we were bosom buddies, ever since that. So then when I got to New York and I got to gig with Betty, a lot of times we would be on the road opposite each other in the same town. He'd be hitting over the other club with Cedar, and I'd be over there with Betty. He'd run over see me, I'd run over see him, and then he would come get me sometimes and say, hey man, I got somewhere I want to take you. And he took me to wasn't my first one, but he took me to a Juma out in LA, Muslim prayer service.
Yeah.
And that was all she wrote. So, and so then we became brothers in the faith. And then there's that tree of all the guys that have taken that step towards Islam. So now,
for one, right?
Man, Idris Muhammad, all my big brothers, Idris, Jackie McLean. Jackie turned Higgins on, and Renee McLean turned Jackie on. So it's a whole tree, Yusef Lateef, Ahmad Jamal, the list goes on and on. And then the guys that have studied it and have knowledge of it, Bobby Watson, Curtis, But Higgins and I, man, it was just just a wonderful thing because I think we felt the same way about the music. It was just a joy to be up there playing with guys that were your heroes that you love.
Yeah.
It's hard to wipe that smile off your face. It's, like, hey man, this is when life is, at its best. I'm getting he would hang out. He was a great brother, man. Great, good brother.
Yeah, fantastic drummer. His name comes up quite a bit. I hear a lot about Billy Higgins from so many musicians. You also play with Dollar Brand too, man. Tell me about that.
Abdullah.
Was that a session?
Abdullah.
Yeah, was that a session you played with him, or did you tour with him briefly? Or
No, I toured. I was in that band for a while and in different configurations. Because there again, some of the guys that I like, I first met Abdullah out on the road. I was with Betty, and we all were in a festival somewhere in Holland or something, and I heard the band. And Higgins used to do the gig sometimes, so of course, if Higgins did the gig, I was interested.
right.
And also Ben Riley, another one of my heroes, would
Yeah.
do the gig. So I met him, and I made some rehearsals and worked with him, and I enjoyed it because the band also consisted of some guys that became dear friends, Sonny Fortune.
Yeah.
Charles Davis, who became a big, we became, close to. We ended up doing one of Charles's tunes on the Tonight Show. When we did the Tonight Show, we did one of Charles Davis's tunes.
Wow.
But yeah, it was Abdullah Ibrahim. That was an experience, because playing at Abdullah being from South Africa, and that whole thing, because apartheid was still happening.
That's right.
At that point in time. So his music was about that. So it was enjoyable. We would be swinging and we get a chance to play with these guys, understand how I feel, meet other people. I did some tours in England with him, did a little bit of Europe. And then one time we did a thing that that at that time might have been kind of new for him. We went out as a quartet. So it was Abdullah Ibrahim, Essiet, Craig Handy, and myself.
Oh man.
And went out and did a West Coast tour.
Yeah. Oh man. Wish I could have seen that. And you know what, Dollar Brand, he was recently at Keystone in Baltimore. He's come around. Todd is bringing a lot of people through because this is like the 50th anniversary of Keystone Corner. He started it in San Francisco
Right.
in 72. So he's got a lot of those people, coming through. Also, man, you play with my man, Farrell Sanders, man. What was that like working with Farrell?
Oh, that was another thing. I mean, Farrell's, again, one of my Muslim brothers.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful experience. And these experiences, they come your way and they help open you up and send you down different avenues. And then, from spending time with Higgins and how open Higgins was and how important some of the tradition and the African tradition was, that it already set me up. So then hitting with Farrell, that just helped me start putting together my concept for the Jelly Posse. So one night hitting with Farrell, I met Abdul Mook, percussionist, who later became a percussionist, with my band on a lot of those first few recordings. So it just opened me up. With things I really enjoyed about playing with Farrell, the feeling, the spirit, and his sound, and that mesmerizing, that would happen with the audience, and just how they would get into it, and that's what the music should be about. This is a spiritual music,
Right.
and that's what the journey was taking me on, getting us to see and understand, especially coming out of the African tradition, that this music is very, very important. It's more than just entertainment. It's more than just playing, notes on the paper and learning the changes and all that. You got to put something with that. We are the storytellers.
Right.
And I experienced the same thing in working with Randy Weston.
I was about to mention that. Yeah, I was about to
yeah,
mention
these were guys that I, that I learned from, and they had that experience of that. Randy spending his time in Africa, saying that he learned that spending time in Africa, that the musician was the storyteller for his people's cause, and that's what we are as jazz musicians.
That man, you hit it right on the nail. I agree. You mentioned Farrell Sanders. Every now and then I pull out that album Themby, man. I got to listen to Farrell sometimes, man, and I'll go back and listen to that. You also work with the late Dr. Billy Taylor, man. and of course he did a lot over at the Kennedy Center. I think Jason Moran has taken over for him, with the jazz program. But what was it like working with Dr. Taylor, man?
Oh man, that was really incredible. When I do these interviews and people start asking me about these things, and I have to think back, I have to say, wow, I really have been blessed in these opportunities
Yeah, you have.
that I've had. And sometimes I feel bad for a lot of the younger guys, because they will have missed
Right.
all of that. But Dr. Taylor, you think about how, the age he was able to reach, and all the music he had seen and come through. So when we were working with him, we could ask him almost about anything in any period,
Mm-hmm.
and he had some kind of experience, or could answer us or direct us in a place. So that was incredible. I mean, somebody had been around and seen Charlie Parker, Billie Holiday.
I know.
I mean, and the list goes on and on. But to have that at your fingertips and be able to ask questions and get those answers from somebody who was there, is just an incredible thing. And the funny story was, when he called me, I think the first time he called me for the gig, I didn't take it.
Right.
Because I mean, with the Harper Brothers, we had just kind of, taken off it, and I felt like, I could still get more out of that.
Right.
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 So then the call came again, and the Harper Brothers, had disbanded, but I was getting ready to think about doing something else myself. So I wasn't sure what to do. So me being me, I always ask questions, So what I do, I call Max Roach up. Say, Max, look, here's what's happening. Dr. Taylor called me, what do you think I should do? He's like, are you crazy? Yeah, you take that gig. And I did, man. That was all she wrote, And I think, dear Max, he was right. It was an incredible experience. It put me in some different situations. I learned a lot, and there again, Dr. Taylor and I, we became good friends. Whereas, even when we weren't working, he would call me up and say, "Hey, what you working on? What you doing?" I say, "Well, I'm doing this, and I got the band doing this." And he said, "Okay, well, while you doing that, keep this in mind and think about this." So we would have those kind of conversations, and from having those kind of conversations, I can tell you, even still to this day, he is truly missed. And not just by me and the guys that he worked with, I think by the industry and the
Yeah.
whole scene, because Doc had a way of keeping things fair, and he was that kind of person. I
Mm-hmm.
never saw him get angry. The whole time I've never seen him curse or go through any of those kind of things. He was just very diplomatic,
Yeah.
and he had a way of looking out for people, being concerned and truly caring, and I think we missed that a lot. And then he had also a way of helping to keep us thinking about and navigate what should be happening and what we should be thinking about and doing.
Yeah. Yeah. He was something else. I got a chance to meet him back in 2009 at the Kennedy Center, and he and I were just chatting about Bud Powell, you know, just reminiscing and talking about some of the old musicians, and just yeah, how incredible they were. Hey, I wanted to ask you, man, when you're at home, just chilling and relaxing, maybe you're not playing any gigs, what is Winard Harper listening to? Who are you playing, man? When you're just home chilling, are you listening to a little bit of old, some of the new stuff, or what are you checking out, man, when you're at home?
Uh, just depends. I do listen to a lot of music. I still listen to a lot of singers because I have
Yeah.
I have a love for that. So I mean, and I still love Dinah Washington and Billie Holiday and Lil Jimmy Scott because I've always admired that ability they have of evoking emotions
Mm-hmm.
in their listeners. And I had the chance to work with Lil Jimmy Scott, so and we were friends. So I still listen to a lot of Abby Lincoln. She's another one. Great storytellers,
Ooh,
you know what I
yeah,
mean, and just move you.
yeah,
And Abby I didn't get a chance to work with Abby, but she had a big influence on me because I met her in DC early on at Blues Alley, and she said something to me that I've always remembered to this day. And Abby, how women are having that intuition. So I
yeah.
think Philip, and Antoine Roney, we came by Blues Alley to see her. So we coming up the stairs at Blues Alley, and before we could say hello and stick our hand out to shake it, Abby looks at us and she must have known we were musicians. She said, "You got a debt to pay." So we looked at each other, we started. She said, "You got a debt to pay."
Wow.
And she said that about 3 times. Then after she got to the third time, she said, "You owe Dizzy Gillespie, you owe Max Roach, Lester Young." She just, she just went down a list, and it was like, and that really hit me. I was like, wow, you know.
Wow. Wow.
And never forgot that. And then some years later, probably not too long before she passed away, I saw her out in the park in Connecticut saying the same thing to some other young musicians. But it really stood out to me, and that's part of the inspiration for a lot of the work I do now, trying to keep the legacy going, passing this information on to younger guys, getting them to go back and study and pay homage to a lot of the elders, the people that came before us, and opening the doors. Trying to keep some of the positive things happening in the music that are there.
Yeah, yeah. And man, you're just bringing up so many wonderful people. I love Abby Lincoln. Wow. And speaking of projects, even though you didn't get a chance to actually work with her, I did like that project that you worked on with Betty Carter and Carmen McRae. That was nice.
Oh, Betty and Carmen.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
those
so you had to think about that for a second. You've done so much. You're like, oh yeah, yeah. So many great artists you've worked with, and that was it back in, was it 94 or early 90s or something like that? You did that?
no, that had to be in the 80s.
80s, okay. Mid-80s.
Cause see, I was with Betty 84 through 88. So that had to be like 80, 80, 85, 86 or something.
Carmen is
because I love Carmen. I met Carmen in DC too. I met Carmen at Blues Alley.
yeah.
And I would go by to see her, every night when she was there. Because I love to hear her sing, but I also love to hear her play piano.
Yeah.
So sometimes, when I got to know her, I would ask her, "Hey, Carmen, play one of the piano pieces for me." And she would do that. But then she had a drummer playing with her at the time, who was also a very good friend of mine, Donald Bailey. And I love Donald Bailey, all that stuff with Jimmy Smith. So I would go by and hang out with Donald Bailey, and we talk, and he'd show me stuff, and we talk about concepts. So I knew Carmen, and then of course I knew Betty. So yeah, it was a fun experience, really, really incredible.
Wow. Man, as I'm sitting here talking to you, and I love the way that you play, because I check out a lot of your videos, and of course I've seen you in person. Something I would have loved to have seen you and Cecil Taylor, just the two of you.
That yeah. At one time somebody was working on that.
Were
It
you
just didn't
serious?
come to fruition. Yeah.
Man, I would have loved to have heard something like that. The two of you guys going at it, because Cecil, he's something else. I was just going to ask you, what's next? What are we going to see from Winard Harper in 2022? Any touring? You're going to come back to this area, Baltimore, DC, working on any major projects?
We're hoping to, like I said, we've been talking to the lady works with us, Agnes. She's been talking to the Keystone Corner. We're hoping to get something solidified and come down there.
Yeah.
Other than that, we're just keeping the band as busy as we possibly can. Here I try to always keep some work happening so we can stay tuned up and be ready. Matter of fact, we're doing a recording because we're still doing a lot of virtual things. Things still haven't gotten back to the old normal. So we're doing a virtual recording in the next day or two. So we try to keep the band busy. But like I was telling you before, when I was working with Dr. Taylor and we hit one of those slow periods, and I can't remember if it was after 9/11, might have been after 9/11 or maybe after his stroke. I found a club in my neighborhood. I mean, literally, when I say my neighborhood, it's right around the corner.
Yeah.
And somebody was trying to do jazz there once a month. We became friends, and I said, well, you know what? I got this downtime. I'm not really touring like I used to. Let me try to put something here so I can keep playing. So I put a jam session in on Fridays. And we did that for a few years, and then it built up. So I said, well, you know what? I want to start Sundays, but on the Sundays, I'll bring some of the people I've worked with, and I'll do something off of the thing that Dr. Taylor used to do at the Kennedy Center, meet the artists.
Mhm.
So that's what happened. On Sundays, I started doing Meet the Artists. And man, over the years, we've had people like Regina Carter, Rufus Reed, Wycliffe Gordon, Lou Tabak, uh, um, Richard Wyans, Norman Simmons. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, we've had a slew of people, a lot of great vocalists, Vanessa Rubin, Don Braden. I mean, it's just on the Sundays, the kind of people we were having come through is just incredible.
Yeah.
And we would play a set of music, and then I let the audience ask some questions. We do a Q&A. So I'm still doing that. I'm still trying to keep that going. We just like we hit last night. I had the tap dancer, Jason Samuel Smith. We featured him last night. But it's a great thing and it's an important work because I get a chance to introduce some of these young people uh, to artists that they might not have met before or been that
Mhm.
close to,
Right.
and people in the neighborhood get a chance because that's another problem. The music is not in our neighborhoods as much as it should be. So
Mm.
that's the endeavor that I do with this. It puts the music back in the neighborhood, gives people in our neighborhood a chance to come and be a part of the music and ask questions. If it's something that they don't understand, they want to know how something works. They want to know how this tap dancer does that, or how Regina Carter, thinks about this, how she practices. You get a chance to experience all of that. And then the young musicians gives them a chance to play, to be alongside these people, ask questions, and just know what it takes to keep moving forward. So it's a needed thing.
Yeah. Winard, speaking of, you were just talking about the youth and just, virtual, doing things online. You're also an educator. Now, do you teach? Do you like give lessons to like younger students online, during your spare time?
Oh, both. Uh,
Yeah.
I've been teaching for years from the club. I'm also just newly taken in on a project where I'm uh, teaching some students at NJCU,
Yeah.
which has a really promising growing program, jazz program over there. So and I've always had the opportunity of doing a little bit of both because playing with Dr. Taylor, we did a lot of workshops, clinics, and teaching going into the schools. We were on faculty for at the CW Post for a minute. So I've had those opportunities of doing it. So and I like doing it. I like being able to share the information I was able to gather from these people that I work with and
Right.
share it with some of the young people because unfortunately, like I was saying, a lot of these young people they're not going to get the chance to experience Betty Carter,
Right.
Art Blakey, you know. So the only way they can get that is through those of us that had the experience and can pass it on.
Yeah.
Because right now, we don't even have bands like that anymore.
I know.
Because I mean, of course, with the pandemic, nobody's touring, and it's just hard to keep bands rolling like that. Like for us, you could come into town, get a gig with Art Blakey and playing the Messengers, for a period, or you could play with Betty Carter for 4 years, and then move on to something else, or Harvest Silver. Well, we're kind of missing those things, so we have to find some other ways of getting to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Nard, listen, man, I want to thank you so much for being on Jazz Talk today. You're a class act, and it's just been a pleasure to sit here, man, and pick your brain and just talk about your career. And I look forward to seeing you in 2022. Hopefully, you'll get down here. Hang on, I'm about to close out the show. Well, you've heard it from the great Winard Harper. And as the saying goes, if the music grooves and makes you move, it must be jazz. I'm Preston Williams with Jazz Talk signing off. Peace.